discussion. Thank you. It's just for us to introduce our project, which we have been asked to do for the Black History Month. So my name is Francis Akinola. So I'm representing an organization called ACANU. So I would like us to go straight into the introduction of what this project is all about. And then the Royal Borough of Greenwich, as we are in, has a Black population of over 20%. And this population continues to increase. And it's been estimated that in the next 10 years, even the population of Black Africans within our borough will increase even more by 26.3%, according to the 2011 census. I'm sure it must have been very increasing now, even more than that. So the Nigerian population in the Royal Borough of Greenwich is the second largest Nigerian population across all London. And it accounts for 48.2% of the total African-born population. And we can say from this Nigerian population, the Benin and Yoruba ethnic populace are very predominant. And it is on the backdrop of this that we have decided to organize this project. Now, the statistics are shown on the slide. It's just a little bit of data about the Royal Borough of Greenwich. You can see that the Black population in this borough is increasing more than any ethnic population. And it is very important that the leadership of this borough understands that fact and create an avenue for there to be mutual communication and mutual and cross information between the Blacks and the leadership of this borough. So I would like to go straight into the title of the project, which we have. The title is titled A Synergy of Three Civilizations: the British, the Yorubas, and the Benin. This project, we have been commissioned to have it take place within the next 6 months across different venues within the borough. And it's going to explore the cultural richness of these three cultural groups and also the complex historical relationship between them. And the project aims to promote and foster inclusivity by exploring how cultural diversity can be harnessed as an avenue towards creating mutual learning and appreciation of a more progressive environment. Our project will consist of guided exhibitions, lectures, and panel discussion regarding the evolution of relationship between the Yoruba, the British, and the Benin cultural diversities. So this talk for us today is just an introduction of what we are going to do. Okay, and so I'm going to just touch on a few aspects of what we are going to do during the course of our project. We are going to look at who the Yorubas are and who the Edo people, or otherwise known as the Benin, are. We are going to look at the historical connection between the British and the Yorubas and the Benin. And we are going to touch a bit on slavery and look at what happened during slavery and how the Yoruba and Benin diaspora have come to have a stay throughout the whole world. So we go to the next slide. Who are the Yorubas? The Yorubas are one of the three largest ethnic groups of Nigeria. They are concentrated in the southwestern part of the country. Yorubas are also very notable in other African countries, such as the Benin Republic, the Togo, and Ghana. And they are dispersed to the New World. When I talk about the New World, we're talking about the Western world, the Americas, and the West Indies, between the 16th and the 19th century. And this 100% happened because of the transatlantic slave trade. And now we find Yoruba people, especially, they are very domiciled in Brazil. In actual fact, we have their domicile in Brazil, the United States, and in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, we have Yoruba domicile in Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica. Cuba, for instance, has an overwhelmingly descent of Yoruba race. Over 60% of the Black population in Cuba are Yoruba as of today. And Yorubas are very renowned also in Brazil. For instance, the state of Bahia in Brazil has 80% Black population, and many of them bear Yoruba names. And as a matter of fact, after Nigeria, Brazil has the second largest population of Yoruba people in the whole world. So we can see that the issue we are talking about this ethnic minority is a means for us to actually tap into in the Royal Borough of Greenwich. And the Yorubas have maintained for instance, they've maintained a strong identity, even in spite of the slave trade, because of their homogeneous culture, which is notable in the areas which they inhabit or into which their influence has penetrated. So Yoruba culture is one of the most researched culture in the whole world. So the ancient Yorubas are mostly farmers and craftspeople, and their political institutions are monarchical and yet very democratic. Their indigenous religion is polytheism, that is the ancient Yorubas. They have a polytheism that is built around monotheism with their belief in Olodumare, who they recognize as a supreme deity. The progenitor of the Yorubas is known as Oduduwa. As you can see in the picture, this is one of the pictures of Oduduwa from the excavation that was unearthed in Ile-Ife. Oduduwa was said to have migrated from Upper Egypt to Ile-Ife, sometimes around the 12th century. But it is worth mentioning also to say that Ile-Ife was not unpeopled before Oduduwa. They have aborigines who were conquered and absorbed. Oduduwa had a son, and that son also in turn had 7 children. The first male child founded the Benin Empire, and the last male child was the progenitor of the Yoruba Empire. Now we're going to look at who the Edos and the Benin are in the next slide. The Kingdom of Benin, known today as Edo Land, are a group distinct from the Yorubas. But the two ethnicities are very closely related because historically there's a general agreement about the centrality of Ile-Ife as the source of both kingdoms. So the Benin also believe that their ruling family came from Ile-Ife. And the Benin were the first to come in contact with the Europeans. This was documented in the year 1472, when the Portuguese explorer Sequeira arrived on the coast of the Niger Delta in the present-day Nigeria. So Benin was recorded by the Portuguese as one of the best planned cities in the entire world. And as documented by one of the historians, they said that its mathematical layout and earthworks was longer than the Great Wall of China. Benin City's planning and design was done according to careful rules of symmetry, proportionality, and repetition. And it's even given a name in mathematical word as fractal design. I wonder if that is the case in Benin today, but that is the people of Benin, the Hedos. And in fact, the Portuguese explorers were quite astounded by the high level of organization and wealth of the Benin Empire. And they quickly established a diplomatic and trade relationship between the Portuguese and the Benin. Also, the King of Benin sent several emissaries from Benin to Portugal at different times. So this relationship between the Portuguese and the Edo people was what brought about the advent of the Europeans in Nigeria as a whole. And in fact, we have the Benin people who normally travel to Portugal, and the Portuguese Creole was descent of what the interconnection between the language of the Benin and the Portuguese. And also the Pidgin English we speak in Nigeria today was as a result of the Benin Empire coming in contact with the Europeans first. So having said that, we have already touched that the attraction of the Benin brought other European nations to the empire. They saw the opportunity to develop trade with the wealthy kingdom. So they import craft, ivory, palm oil, gold, and pepper, and they export guns to the Benin Empire. Well, it is important here to discuss the centrality of Lagos in this relationship. So I'm going to touch a bit about on Lagos. Lagos presently is the largest city in Nigeria and the second most populous city in Africa. It was properly established by the Oba of Benin Kingdom because he needed an easy route and network for the flow of trade transaction between him and the Europeans. And because Eko, as Lagos is known by the indigenes, is strategically located at the Atlantic Ocean. So the Portuguese established a trading port within the Benin Kingdom in Lagos as far back as 1480. So this little coastal town, like I said, was formerly known, is still known as Eko by the indigenes, but it was christened Lagos by the Portuguese. So, and Lagos was ruled by the Oba of Benin, but it was mostly populated by the Yorubas and the Aworis, with a couple of Benin people in Lagos. So we have a population of Yorubas and Aworis, but the area was being administered by the Benin Kingdom. So it was in Lagos where all these ships were loading and landing, and transaction of trade between the representative of Oba and the Portuguese were carried out. Lagos has always experienced growth, even prior to the slave trade. And we shall now look at what brought about the slave trade and its consequences for these two kingdoms. So I'm going to touch on the next slide. It is worth mentioning that slave trade did not become an important aspect of the Atlantic trade until the discovery of Americas in the 16th century. So prior to the discovery of America, there has been trade between predominantly the Edo people, then the Yorubas, and the Europeans. But the discovery of America meant that there was going to be people, the Europeans and Americans needed manpower to cultivate the plantations. So they had to make an agreement. And I would like to say that slave did not become the dominant item of Atlantic trade. And the Benin king initially was eager to trade with the Portuguese in non-human goods. But like I said, with the rising demand of slaves in the first half of the 16th century, the Oba of Benin had to budge to the Caucasian request for slaves and began the coastal slave trade. And it is also worth mentioning that the Benin Kingdom severely restricted the selling of male slaves. But this was not the case with the Yoruba people. Yoruba slavery was an institution with Yoruba race because they needed it for their economic and political stability. So the establishment of the slavery brought about that, I mean, around the coast of Lagos meant that there were more Yorubas who were willing to transact in slave trade more than the Edo people. The Edo people restricted their slave trade to the women because they needed the men to guard the kingdom. But because there were interracial fracas between the Yorubas, and we have the different type of ethnicities even amongst the Yorubas, so they were selling each other more to the Europeans. And it is estimated that, I mean, the total number of slaves exported are difficult to calculate. But it is estimated, according to records, that between 1600 and 1800, the Bites of Benin, that is part of which is Lagos, shipped more than 1.2 million of slaves to the Americas. And during the transatlantic slave trade, slaves were taken from almost every Black ethnic group. It wasn't only peculiar to Benin or to Yoruba people. However, we can say that only the Yoruba slaves retained their culture on a large scale throughout America. And we cannot categorically say about the other African tribes that they were able to retain their culture. In Latin America and the Caribbean, there are an estimated 50 million believers, for instance, in Candobol and Santeria. And these religions are based on Yoruba traditional worship. And this religious practice from the independence of America and how United States of America has come to play, we said that there is a part of music from the Yoruba people which has metamorphosized into what we know as jazz, blues, rhythms, hip hop, rap, reggae, and Afro music today. And so the legal abolition of slave trade actually occurred in 1807. The British were the first to abolish slave trade. But it's worth mentioning that this act of abolition did not stop the continuation of the slave trade. The slave trade declined to marginal levels only after 1850 as a result of different factors, the most significant of which were the increased vigilance of the British anti-slavery naval activities off the coast and the abolition of slave trade by several largest markets in the Americas. For instance, Brazil outlawed further importation of slaves in 1850. Even though the United States of America was still willing to take in slaves after the abolition of slave trade, and the Yoruba people especially were still willing to sell slaves to the Americans. But this gradually was met with like opposition because the British were actually turning back slaves. So eventually, the slave trade declined. And at this juncture, I would just like to us to look at the impact of the slave trade. And this is what thank you. As kind of, there are good and bad side of slave trade. And what we have here in the Greenwich Council, it's not, the Greenwich Council has a Yoruba and Edo population of almost 50% of the entire Black population of the Royal Borough of Greenwich. So most of them are economic and educational migrants, but they've come with a lot of richness in their culture. So what this project is all about is for us to look at all these historic happenings. I would like to stop at slavery today, because there are other things that happened with the advent. When the slavery stopped, the British had to come, and then there was colonization. Then after colonization, there was the issue of the struggle for independence, and all these things we are going to explore in our project. So it's been a long journey from the 15th century up to this present stage. And now we have a good opportunity for us to be able to look at our culture and see how we can foster mutual relationship, especially in our borough, which has one of the largest Black population in the entire United Kingdom. I would like to say that our future is greater than our past. But the point is, how can these three cultures create a mutual inculturation and not acculturation? I'm going to explain myself. Inculturation is about synergy. That is, I've got something, you've got something. You give me what I've got, I give you what you got. And we try to see how we can get a win-win approach towards that. But what we have now, majorly, is acculturation. Acculturation is a means whereby one culture imposes its own identity on the other culture, and that's not going to create mutual benefits for our environment. For instance, we have people from the Yoruba people today and the Edo people who cannot even speak their language because they consider their language as vernacular. Sometimes they hit their children because they are speaking in their language. This is going to deplete our resources. And we have a lot of people from Africa today who name their children English names. But I would like us to see here in the Royal Borough, how can we tap from the rich resources which this economic migrant from Africa and the educational migrant have got. And it boils down to the area of inclusivity, diversity, and equity. And for instance, I can say that, for instance, in the UK, in London, for instance, with the Yoruba verbal, visual, and performative arts, and their philosophical weight has flourished globally. And it is also something making waves, especially in the music and movie industries. We are fortunate to have a Nollywood studio in Thamesmead, here in the Royal Borough. How are we harnessing this studio? How and what is the connection between this studio, this Nollywood, and the British film industries? Without a synergy of such culture, it is difficult for an environment to grow when a society feels left out. And I'm going to also talk about Nigeria, because Nigeria also is especially from the Southwestern and the Benin people that we are talking today, is facing a depletion of human resources, because a lot of the children, a lot of people are facing economic strife. They are coming in en masse to study. How do we welcome them in the Royal Borough of Greenwich? How do we make them comfortable? And how do we tap from the wealth of their experience? I would say it's going to be a drastic mistake for us to assume that these people have nothing to offer. They've got a lot to offer us. And for instance, I want to say something very controversial, which is it's worth exploring. It's a discussion on the speculative question of the origin of the subject of Odu. What has brought about the binary, the basis of binary that we use in our computer system today? If we look at the roots, we see that this issue of binary has been something that has been systematized right from the ancient Benin and Yoruba Empire. And it is even that aspect that has brought about the aspect of genome and DNA today. And this is a simple aspect of how we can not acculturate, but inculturate, so that we look at how we can get a mutual manner of existence that will be beneficial to both. The reality we have in the UK, for instance, shows widespread racial inequality. Over 60% of Black people in the UK do not believe their health is as equally protected as the whites. 85% of Black people, according to record, are not confident that they will be treated the same as white. We always have all these Black searches because there is a system of suspicion that Black people are involved in crime. When we are looking at negative issues without addressing the positive impact that the richness of these Black people, we are set towards losing a lot as an entity. And 25% of Black voters in Great Britain are not registered to vote because they do not feel the system is really set up to listen to them. And it is based on all this that our project would explore how we can see and how we can create mutual and benevolent win-win situation between the British culture and the African culture. Specifically, now our project is based on the Yoruba and the Edo culture. So at this juncture, I would like to stop. Thank you for listening to with me. I would like, if there are questions or contributions on what we have talked about today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Any question, any contribution?
Hello. What is this one?
So, sorry?
What are you doing here?
Yeah, October is Black History Month. So we are talking about racial inequalities and how we can better address this and make sure we live in a just, equitable, and fair society. Thank you.
This is like Black community history year.
Okay? Yeah, more or less so. Yeah.
This is the first day today.
Sorry?
This is the first day you're...
Yeah, it's just an introduction today. I forgot to mention that we're going to have on the 20th here in the Village Library also, we are going to have an exhibition. There's going to be an exhibition that will deal more with what I have talked about today. So you are going to see banners all around that's going to tell about the historical relationship between the Benin, the Yorubas, and the British, and how we started and where we are today, and what we can do to improve our relationship. So, all right, sir.
Why do you narrow it down to only specific ethnic groups within Nigeria? If you're talking about Black history, I thought it would cut across, the entire Black community. I'm a Ghanaian.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very important.
What you are doing, educated. So I just decided to pop in and listen to what's going on.
Thank you.
But I thought that if you could, I just want to understand. Maybe there is a reason why.
Yes.
You down to.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question, and it's what I've been asked also, what we've been asked in our organization. Because there is I don't know if you are aware, there is a sort of movement within the Royal Borough now about equity, diversity, and inclusivity. At least it's on paper that this is what the Royal Borough of Greenwich would like to do. So, but the leaders do not have enough contact with our historical background. So what we've been specifically asked to do is that not to generalize as African, like somebody now, if they want to call,
when are you coming back?
People feel Africa is a country, Africa is a continent. But within those continents, we have countries. Even within those countries, we have ethnic groups. So based on that requirement, that we've got to touch about the ethnic groups. So we have, I know we've got an organization talking about an ethnic group in Somali. So it was just for us to narrow that down, not just to talk. If I have to talk about Nigeria, I've got to talk about 300 ethnic groups. So that was what will inform, or just being specific about the Yoruba and the Benin people.
Okay, so my own contribution to that. It's a very good feedback.
Thank you.
Your references, in as much as you make it to the Yoruba and Benin, most of the ethnic groups experience the same.
Correct. Absolutely.
So if you can cut, maybe spread your jump across.
Yes.
Not so that other groups will also feel.
Exactly.
The narration is also about them.
Yes.
Not only about Yoruba.
Yes.
And Benin.
Yes, that's a very good point. I would say, we feel the same. Permit me to use the word struggle, because we like it or not, the black race, not even African, the black race generally have been badly mistreated historically, and we've got to have a voice, and it is part of this voice that we are just attempting to have. But the fact is that it's a good place to start, because if you want to know about me and you tell me what you would like to know about me, I should not start telling you from my extended family. You want to know about me first. That's what informed this. But it's something we will take on board, and we will feedback to the council that this is also needed. But we will definitely, we are passionate about, not even African alone, the black struggle. So we will take that on board. Thank you very much. Yeah,
thank you, Francis.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting topic. How do you intend to use the project to reach out to the black community? Because I heard you talking about people not being aware, not wanting to vote because the thing of votes, doesn't count. So how do you intend to use this project to reach out to them and to change that narrative?
Yeah.
And because the point is, if you don't play the lottery,
you won't win it. Correct.
So the fact that people think that a vote won't count or does not matter, I think that's the wrong way to go. So how do you intend to use this project to reach out to people and try and change their narrative?
Yeah, I want to thank you very much. That's a good question. I want to say something. This time last year, I wouldn't ever imagine I will be at a place like this delivering such a talk. I thought it was something that was way beyond me, because there are certain cliques there. Rightly, there are cliques, but I was opportune to know somebody who knows a white person, so that we could have a voice. It is the beginning of us having a voice. There are a lot of, as we can tell from our community, there are a lot of struggles the black people are going through. This is an attempt for us to have a voice. If I have a voice today, I will be able to give you to say that it is possible. Let us not believe anything is impossible. At the moment, the leader of the Greenwich Council is a black person. So sometimes we look at things from afar, and because of the way we've been badly treated before, we feel that we can never get it. Nelson Mandela did say that when he was during the apartheid, he said, sometimes you feel it can never be done until it is achieved. That is the belief we are attempting to give the black people, starting from home, starting from the Royal Borough of Greenwich, and hopefully it will get global.
Yeah, but what I would like to maybe is my question of contribution is the Black History awareness or program has been in existence for a very long time now. So what will make this one now different from the main Black History movement that is going on?
Yes, okay. That's another very important thing. Somebody, for instance, I can see a change from the Black history. Like I said, last year, I wasn't involved, but I was reading it because I'm passionate about the black race. So I knew that they call it Black History Month in the Royal Borough of Greenwich. But there has been a move out of that we cannot just say that the Black History talking is all about October. So there are people who say that this is wrong. It's got to be all across the year. So the theme of this year is Black History 365. 365 means all the year round. So I think it's a good stepping stone. I know we have to accelerate the changes. We have to, by having dialogues like this, we can really accelerate changes. But what I would like to give you confidence in is that nothing is impossible for you and me if we set our hearts on it. Nothing that the white person can do that you as a Black person cannot achieve. That is the voice we have to give each other.
Yeah, why I ask is because I used to see Black history celebrations here and there. For what I've come to conclude in the Black history thing I've seen going on is all about coming to exhibit for maybe our dance, our mode of dressing, our food. You understand all those things. But like what you're saying is it will be different, completely different. That's how we've been treated.
Yes.
How can it be corrected?
Correct.
How can you make a Black man to don't see white man to be like
correct
is superior than you?
Yes.
In the Royal Borough of Benin.
Exactly.
And starting from what we are doing.
Yes.
So like this brother act. This brother act now.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be only Benin Yoruba and
yes.
Let's say Benin Yoruba.
Yes.
But we should cut that across to a lot of our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Black. In fact, as they say Black,
yes.
There's also something in my head which I'm trying to form a name to it.
Yes.
Why we should be called Black.
Yes.
And so that's a different thing. So I believe maybe this one, I just hope by God's grace,
yes.
it's something that will take a different
yes.
shape and a different dimension.
Thank you very much. You know, there is power in story. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
If somebody is ignorant, you cannot expect him to come into, like you rightly said, what has been happening in Black history is the display of this and artifacts and things like that. But we have not really contextualized our stories. So what I would say, because of the Black leadership in the Royal Borough of Greenwich, they specifically asked for a narrative. And that is what informs this storytelling. Without storytelling, without history, without knowing where we are coming from, it is impossible for us to know where we are going. So this is what actually a very important reason why we are telling our stories today. Thank you.
The stories, it's good. All the points that you've made, the brother has made, contribution, play the lottery, and we try it to the people.
Yeah.
See, it's so interesting. If you take subject like history, aspect of history in schools that talks about slavery or slavery.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a Black teacher teaching that to white students, you know how it feels. I came into this country, the background as a teacher, so I taught in the secondary school and the humanity department. So I'm part of the things we talked was history, slavery, and all that.
Yeah.
These students sitting down there see you as the person we are talking about. Because we're talking about the ideas, what they went through, and all the story. They directly relate the story to you.
Yes.
So instead of these kids learning something out of it,
yes,
they are making fun of it.
And that is, I still say it. That is, if there has not been racism, there wouldn't be a word for it. Racism, that is what you've just explained, is pure racism. But they are children, but because they
started from, how do they get into that mindset?
Yes.
Because they come from home.
From home, that's true. And in this country, talking about slavery, you are playing the videos, you are seeing the Black person being chased, going through all that.
They play it in their homes, they make mockery of you, children are learning.
effect that we went through.
Yes.
It hasn't done on it. We don't see it. We see it as fundamental. In fact, one of the reasons why I left teaching is that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can imagine how difficult.
And some of them will even be calling names.
Yes. Yes.
The names of the characters there.
In that group. Yeah.
That's ignorance of the highest order.
So, and well, I don't know whether in my school, but what also seems like white teachers talking about slavery in that manner.
In the yeah.
And you have black person talking about
Yeah,
They teach the history as well. It's an issue you teach.
they teach a different history.
when you're talking about their history, the Germans and all that.
Yes.
That's the history.
As a teacher, you decide what. I thought it was a curriculum that you have to teach.
Yes, thank you. Yes, fine, thank you. Yes, yes.
Part of the curriculum
Yeah.
is slavery.
Exactly.
So you can't talk about slavery without talking about Africa. Because most of the story, history is
Yeah. You're quite right. That is the very right. If I had not experienced it firsthand, the racial discrimination, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. What a typical person, British, understands about the Black person is the history of slavery, no more, no less. They cannot, it is left for us to have our own story that the Black person is more than slavery. The Black person has enormous potential, which under the guise of slavery, you cannot even look beyond. We have a lot of things that the Black people are doing that are very, very integral. I've just talked about music now. There is no way you're going to talk about music globally without talking about the Black race. Without, yes. And why don't you look at this? Why are you close to the enormous potential of the Black people with the energy they've got, with the impact they've made in the culture, with all these influences? Why do you look at slavery alone? It's going to be difficult for us to cut out, but we've got to start by telling another story that is just not basically rooted in slavery. We got to start looking at, say, look, okay, we've got history. And the white people and the Black people, okay, we've got through this. You enslaved us, we went through this, but there are more to this than this that you are missing out. There are more to my person, and it is happening in your face. And because of the narrative of history, you are not seeing it. It's like a big elephant in the room. You just decide not to see all these things that are happening. And that is why these meetings like this are very important. We've got to tell our story, and we've got to tell the world that there is more to Africans than slavery.
And even to add, slavery did not really start with Black people. Slavery, I will know if I'm not a good historian, but the little have read or seen. Slavery did not start with Black people. It started with the white people, but the problem is why it's like it changed something they did to Black people that had become a kind of identity for Black man. Slavery did not really start with Black people.
Yeah, I mean,
it started long time ago.
You know,
before it started coming. This thing we're talking about slavery. It's not that so biased. So biased. It didn't start with Black people. If you already go back there. It didn't start with nobody. It's like now become a stigma on Black people. Now,
sorry, can I? You're very right, absolutely. Because when I tell my story of slavery, a typical Caucasian is still looking at me as, how can I help you? They're not looking at partnership. It's not going to be a sympathy. They're not looking at me as, they're still looking at, oh, we've done something very wrong to you. Okay, I want to make a reparation. What tip can I give you so that you keep your mouth shut? That's not what I need. And that is what we've got to educate our children on, that it's not about you making reparation to me. It's about seeing me as there is no potential in you that I cannot do and that I cannot even surpass. If you have not reoriented yourself above that perspective, that there is a certain evil in ignorance. And that is why we've got to tell these stories and know that there are more potentials in the Black person than slavery. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, you got to find a voice. We've got all to find a voice.
People who are not ignorant, they obviously know, but people just choose to, act as
exactly.
No matter what you say to them, they still choose to remain in that mindset.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's no way we can stop. We can't erase our history. We can't stop talking about slavery.
Yeah. No, we need to talk about it, but we need to now move on. Exactly.
But that is not what made up what Black man is on their back.
No, that's not what it's all about. But you can't erase it.
So, on this, thank you very much for this lovely discussion. We will be ending now. The library will be closing at 5. I thank everyone in Nigeria who have come to join us online. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to the 28th of October when we'll be having our exhibition in the Woolwich Library here, starting all day, but there is going to be panel discussion from 4 p.m. similar to this. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's some Francis.
Thank you.